He kōna ipurangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
Kia ora and welcome to this podcast of Māpuna ko Tamamiru Taku Ingoa. And today is an interesting chat that I had with the senior curator Māori art at Toi o Tamaki. It's Auckland Art Gallery. And his name is Nathan Pohio. Now he's a Ngaitahu boy. And he joined the gallery just over 2 years ago. So I had a chat to him about his first 2 years in charge and the type of exhibitions he's had, but also the sort of current scene at the moment amongst especially young, up-and-coming Māori and Pacifica artists. And Nathan had some very interesting ideas about how to support practicing artists in this country. And one of them was that perhaps like Australia, artists only be taxed after their first $65,000 in income. And that was very interesting to hear because, of course, getting by just on your art alone can be tricky, as Nathan himself knows, because he's an artist in his own right in the field of photography. So we spoke about that and also a couple of the upcoming exhibitions which are going to be starting at the end of April and then later on in 2024. So there'll be much to chew over, and I do hope you enjoy it. And I started by asking him about the response to his most recent exhibition, Romancing the Collection.
So Romancing the Collection is the exhibition was originally curated by Juliana Enberg, and Nigel Burrell also was engaged with it at the front end of the gallery, where I later came to work. And Juliana was given carte blanche, I believe, working out a rationale to use the collection of Auckland Art Gallery Toi o Tamaki to present the collection to the public. And I joined the staff in February 2002, and the show had been up and
22.
22?
Yeah.
Aroha mai.
Yeah.
I haven't been around that long.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
And in 22, and there had been a little bit of press that had come out and said, and made the point rather, that although there was a presence of Māori culture in the exhibition, there was no Māori artworks in the collection. And my good colleague Julia Waite, in a curatorial meeting, sounded out around how the gallery should proceed, and really felt that the gallery should reconfigure the exhibition spaces, or some of the exhibition spaces, to address the criticism from the press. And so she and I worked on that together in partnership, but she did give me a lot of breadth. And so with that, and we had talked about what our basic principle, if you like, was going to be, what was going to build a kaupapa for us. Julia was very much keen to draw out otherness generally, so rainbow communities, Pacifica communities, and of course I could bring in the Te Ao Māori into invest that into the program. And so we did these things together with that in mind. And so at the front of the gallery, I came up with, and I thought, well, this collection it's such a beautiful collection. It's so substantial in Māori art. I thought, let's look to where you are now, if you like, not to make it about me at all, but let's look to the whenua. You address the whenua, and you address he tangata, the people. And so that was probably the thing that just kind of was the thing to do, if you like. It was my first time putting a show here together for the gallery, so I thought manaaki tangata, respecting and caring for, the other way around, starting with the whenua, manaaki whenua, respecting and caring for the land, hei manaaki whenua. And so I was talking around the taiao, the natural environment, how it had art historically been an enduring subject for many artists, but also that from within Te Ao Māori it brings so much more with it in terms of cultural value and worldview.
And whose work was in Romancing the Collection?
So, well, the work that I had brought into the show from the foyer, the first works you would see would be Arnold Manaki Wilson, his work Hei Tangata, and that was flanked by 2 works by Wee Taipa. And I was thinking that let's also not just talk about the whenua, but let's see how whenua is used by Māori artists to make work. And then, so Arnold's work, Hei Tangata, is kauri, or it's a native timber, and it's carved, and it has the sense of a human figure. It also calls upon, I think we feel that it's fair to say it calls upon the work of Barbara Hepworth, who is a British sculptor and from the 1950s or 40s, 50s and so on.
And just anyone wondering, we've got a little bit of work going on here at the gallery, so if you hear a bit of drilling outside, but I'm sure that won't go on long. Now, I just want to actually just come back to you for a minute, because you mentioned before you've been here just over 2 years.
Yeah.
What's it like a Ngāi Tahu boy in Tamaki? With all that surrounds you here, it's not just about putting artwork up, but there's a degree of politics, I guess, and making decisions which actually...
It's a big shift from home. From home, you know, you're in the takiwa of Ngāi Huriri that I whakapapa to, but you're also... Ngāi Tahu is most of the whole island is the one iwi, so... making things happen or finding the correct way to make things happen and then write or talk about them is quite straightforward. Well, not straightforward, but it's within grasp of your network of people. And so you slowly over time build your confidence of who you need to go to for specific insight or expertise. And here, of course, Tamaki Makaurau is a far more complicated place. The North Island is a far more complicated place. But I have fantastic support through Joe Pihima, who's our, I've got to get his title right, but let's say Po Whenua for now. He's here, well, Joe Pihima is our head of kaupapa Māori here at the gallery. He whakapapas to Ngāti Whātua, and has a great amount to do with Ngāti Whātua interests in the city. He descends from Te Kawau, who gifted 3,000 acres of land to Governor Grey back in the 1840s, I think it was. And that basically is the land area of the CBD of Auckland City. So in terms of the person that I begin with, I've got a really good, the gallery I should say, has a fantastic person to seek advice of. And Joe is actually connected all around the motu. So when I come to him and go, well, we've got this descendant of a Lindawa who would like to discuss the loan of, or a copy of the work or something, Joe is able to align me with the right hapu, for example, or a person within a hapu to go talk to about that tupuna and take and learn from them about maybe what to write, for example, about that particular ancestor that's in the collection, who's represented, I should say, here in the collection through the paintings of, say, Gottfried Lindauer or Charles Goldie. So that's kind of a part of, I suppose, an example of how I'm learning to operate here, because it is a far more complicated place, but having somebody like Joe does actually mean that you can follow kaupapa Māori in terms of, let's say, for example, how to write about something in the collection that is not Ngāi Tahu. And so I need, I need to be able to either research or talk to the right people.
And if you were to sum up your own, if you like, personal kaupapa, when you came to the job, did you have a idea of how you wanted to do this, which has then changed, or are you still...
That's a really good question, Tama. I had been building, if you like, what I think is a methodology towards curating as Māori, and I still adhere to that. It is a kaupapa that is, of course, as everything does, evolving. It has to evolve, and so I don't know if I can quite answer that with an example, but I can absolutely say yes. I did come here with an idea on how to work as a Māori curator, but I'm learning how to do that role in the environment that I am now in, which is far more complicated than what it was back home. So, but I feel like I'm gaining confidence in that and getting a stronger sense of what my responsibility is to ngā iwi.
So if you just break down your job, your role, and how you're going to decide on the next exhibition.
Yeah.
I mean, is this something that it's obviously collaborative to an extent, I assume.
Yeah.
But how do you decide on the kaupapa for the next, and what
how do you
kind
begin?
of work? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Well, I really love working with collections. Collections gives you insight to the community that you are surrounded by. And Auckland Art Gallery, Tamaki has a fantastic collection. It also has an excellent Māori collection, particularly around the modernist through to contemporary, Māori modernism through to contemporary. But in terms of actually deciding, yeah, that's a really big one, and it's been quite a challenge to face. One of the things that I'm thinking about is how do you acknowledge, how does kaupapa Māori work within a curatorium environment? What do we do when we introduce ourselves, or when we're on the, what do you see the speakers do when they're on the pai? They'll acknowledge the ones that come before, they'll acknowledge the ones that are present, they'll make room for the discourse that's taken place before them and contribute to that. So I think about it in those kinds of terms. And one of the things, therefore, that I see as important is acknowledging the tupuna in various ways, in whatever format that they may come in, but also to acknowledge elders, so elder senior Māori artists. And I'm developing a program reaching out to senior Māori artists I can't really promise to do survey type shows because they're so big and there's a lot of Māori artists to acknowledge, but to develop projects with them that might include works from the past as well as the present or new work. And that to me is one example of how kaupapa Māori might work within a curatorial career, if you like, or practice. It's not something I've been trained for. I'm principally someone who's learning how to do this on the job, but I've been at it I'll be 10 years next year.
And of course, I remember last year, there's an international flavour to what you do, because we had this massive exhibition of First Nations Aboriginal artists come through from Australia.
Yeah, ever present.
Ever present, exactly.
Yeah. And we applied kaupapa Māori, but also kaupapa First People of Australia customary practices towards how we were going to do that show. When I first met the curator Tina Baum, it was with our curator Kirsten Lacey over in Singapore, where the exhibition had travelled to, and we were attending the opening for it there. And when we got to meet after everything was, all the opening stuff was done, the first thing I said to her was, we need to align ourselves culturally with what your practice requires of the institution that I work at, and we will find our way to manaaki you ones as our manuhiri. And so we unpacked all of that, and but it was really important for us both. And Tina, of course, was like, yes, that's how I want to do it too. That's absolutely the way we should do it. And she where she needed to, made space for us to be able to make space for them, if you like, in the timelines leading up to the exhibitions. And she was there for every element of tikanga Māori, every karakia from the get-go, from the moment works really entered the building onwards. She was present, participating as much as she could. As much as she could be in the country for those moments, she was, and she'd come back at the end too.
I just want to pick up on something. You were talking about establishing relationships or having relationships with some senior contemporary Māori artists.
Yeah.
I did an interview recently with Brad Cohen from New Zealand Opera, and we were reminiscing about the breakthrough moment for Kiri Te Kanawa
Right.
in 1971 at Covent Garden.
Right.
Are you ever looking around for that young, new, fresh talent and that kind of breakout show that you might have here? I mean, obviously,
Right.
you want to mix it up. I'm taking it.
Yeah,
Are there young artists out there who have really got something to say that you think?
Bro, there are so many.
Yeah.
There are so many young artists coming through, and what really distinguishes them for me, someone in his mid-50s now, is, and particularly here in the north, is the depth of mātauranga Māori, tikanga, and behind the practice, behind the thinking behind the practices, and there of course is also the reo and their whakapapa at the centre of it all. And I can see that when I see some of their work. That's the thing that's distinguishing these young ones to me. To me, it says a lot about not just the home, the living environment, but also the educational environment that these ones have been. These are the, what did our speaker just say down in Parliament some weeks ago? The kohanga reo generation are here.
Yeah.
I can exactly. She is so right, and I can see it in the art as well as the politics.
It's interesting you say politics, because that's actually what I wanted to just get to, because as you know, over the last 50 years or so,
Yeah.
some contemporary Māori art has been, what is woven through it is protest,
Yeah.
commentary on the situation in this country as it stands.
For sure.
You can think the 1975 Land March,
Yep.
you had artwork, you had poetry by Hone Tūwhare, you had the 1981 Springbok Tour. You even come into one-off pieces like when Ralph Hōtere protested against what Paul Holmes once said about
the Great White Drip.
the Great White Drip, about his comments regarding the former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. Do you see that kind of protest element, that kind of commentary on the country that we are now from young artists coming through?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And I see it happening in different ways. So that particular generation, say the Ralph Hōtere, Robin Kahukiwa, Emily Karaka, really on fire in their artwork and looking to other examples of art, indigenous artists who would form an aesthetics that were all talking to one another nationally and internationally. I can see that happening with these younger ones as well.
Can you toss out some names?
Wow, there's a thing. No, I can't. I'm just too nervous with this microphone in my hand right now.
Okay.
But what I can say is that what I find kind of a major challenge is the number of young Māori artists who are out making stuff at the moment. They are fierce. Their work is ferocious, and you can see their political positioning, if you like, underneath their work, and it really distinguishes them.
And when we come to this new government, it seems that their arts policy is still forming, from what I can make out.
Yeah.
And you've got the Minister, Paul Goldsmith, Minister of Arts and Culture and Heritage.
Yeah.
What would you like to see from the new government in terms of the funding of the arts or the support of it?
Right. I'll get to that. Recently we had the opening of the Robertson Collection exhibition upstairs, and the Prime Minister was here for that. And our director, Kirsten Lacey, laid down a challenge to the PM, simply saying, can you please look towards and this is going to be a big part of, I think, the arts in Aotearoa going forward. Can you please look towards a tax break for people that gift works to galleries? And gifting in Aotearoa is something that really just is determined or relies upon the generosity of the collector, and there's no recognition for that gift making. And so Kirsten is asking, would the government consider recognising that? And he responded positively to that call. So I think that's one thing to watch on the landscape, if you like, of arts and art, although it's related to funding in the future. Now, I feel quite detached in terms of how art funding is taking place in Aotearoa. I haven't applied for anything. I've been institutionalised, if you like, and I don't mind admitting to that. So, but I am someone who has worked in the arts sector for over 20 years on the board at the Physics Room, which relies on CNZ funding to exist. And I wonder, in terms of strategies going forward for arts funding, I think there probably needs to be, it's probably time for some sort of, I hate the word review, but it seems to me from what I'm hearing in the community, there's a sense of a leaning towards some kind of review of where arts funding will be moving into the future. I think there's a concern over, or a mystification over, some things not getting funded at all. But then, I've got to be really, not that I'm trying to be careful or diplomatic here, I just don't know if I'm attached enough to be able to say. It does seem to me, though, that our CNZ funding body...
You mean Creative New Zealand?
Creative New Zealand. Excuse me. It would be, I think something healthy needs to happen with Creative New Zealand by the sounds of it. I don't know exactly what that is, but it does. But there are obviously, ways for the institution to, I guess, take stock of where it's been, what it's there for, and how it's achieving the goals of what it is there to do. And
you'd have your ear to the ground a little bit, I'm taking it. You're talking about, what do you hear from artists in terms of how they're coping, in terms of their access to funding or even the facility to work in? Is that...
Yeah. Well, that's a tricky one, because you're starting to talk about the economic environment.
Yeah.
And we've got a housing crisis, and that's not new. It's been going on since the last national government was in place. We've got artworks here in the collection that are from that time, of people living in their homes, in their cars, and I've seen that here in Tamaki.
You mean artists?
I mean people.
Oh, just people.
Just people. I don't know if they're artists. The things that artists, if we just maybe scrap some of that stuff and we look to, so you're talking about the economic environment, and artists' needs are really pretty simple. They need a place to live and live healthily. They need a place, most of the time, most artists still require some space to work in. And they also have to be able to hold their jobs at the same time, because we have a society that doesn't really believe, I think, in the importance of artists and the artist's right to live by their art. If we look to other economies around the world, we'll see that, for example, if you're an artist, you can expect to be supported by, in particular tiers through your life by the government. So the objective there is that you as an artist work on your art, and you are expected to build your career in a particular way that enables you to generate a particular kind of income for yourself after a period of time. So the government contribution lessens as you increase your own self-generated income. That's one example. Another one in Australia is that no artists are taxed for the first $65,000 that they earn. So you can earn $65,000 a year tax-free. You don't get taxed on it. That is radical. And I think, well, this country surely does not recognise that, or doesn't encourage people to generate income, their own income, without government reliance and without being on the dole or on any benefit. They might have a cafe job or something, but they can earn and sustain themselves up to the value of $65,000, and at that point they'll get taxed. They can expect to be taxed. That would be a fantastic thing for the economy of New Zealand, I would think, because we also happen to have, well, years and years ago, I can remember a report saying that we were, per capita, the highest artist-producing country in the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, we produce so many more artists per capita than most places in the world. This is probably old data now. I don't know where it would stand anymore. But by what I'm seeing through my social media and private life contacts, I would say that's right. Particularly, I become more aware of it in my move here to Tamaki, Makaurau. There's several times the population of artists living here and working here and deserving attention because they are producing world-class art, but they're producing it in a country that doesn't recognise it or its worth. Firstly, they don't recognise how good the art is in this country, and then secondly, there's the problem of us not recognising in terms of a financial or an economic worth. And then there's also an economy that won't really support that anyway, because most people who do pay for artworks are people who are either collectors or they are enthusiasts that like to buy work and support particularly young artists coming through, and will collect from the younger ones. Well, that's affordable. What I'm trying to say is that they'll collect to what the budget can afford. So it's a complex kind of scenario, but really probably the most important thing is what is our cultural sense of worth towards the arts? What is our cultural sense of what this potential has in terms of our economy?
One thing I'll just pick up on, and I guess this is kind of the economic aspect of being a practicing artist. Today, you would have more of an ability than ever before to self-publicise through social media, etc.
Yes.
And to even sell your work online somewhere.
Yeah.
Do artists need galleries as much as they used to?
Yeah, that's a good one too. I think we're probably at the beginnings of what will become artists supporting themselves online, because that market is international. I would hate to see us lose the culture of the dealer gallery environment. I say that because there's so much more to what a gallerist is able to offer than an Instagram account. There's so much more that gallerists provide. There's so much cultural memory that a gallerist has invested in by simply deciding that's going to be their call in life. You look to the Peter McCleavy's, oh golly, if I start now, and if we look to the significant dealer galleries in Aotearoa, New Zealand over the last 40 years, let alone the last 60 years, we're looking at people who have dedicated their professional lives to the culture and the nation building of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and the cultural memory of Aotearoa, New Zealand, whether they are Māori, whether they're Pākehā, whether they're Oceanic Pacific artists, Asian, whatever. The dealer environment has the dealer part of the arts ecology of Aotearoa, New Zealand has a very important part that it has played, it plays and continues to play. But the cultural memory that a dealer gallery has is so important to an institution like this one, because we go to them for insight. And they've got experiences that are, 10, 15, 20, 30 years deep in dealing with artists who are in our collection, may not have a substantial publication made about them, may be out of reach, may no longer be with us. But the dealer is someone who's been working with them for 10 or 15 years and knows that person really well, knows their work really well.
Because even as I came in here today to see you here at Toi Tamaki, and in the main entrance I saw a big tour group.
Yeah.
I could hear the accents, they were foreign. But then there was a whole big group of school children.
Yeah.
A lot of them running around, having to be hauled back, saying you can't take your backpack in there. I mean, it was good to see.
Yeah.
There was real hum, there was real buzz here today. And
Yeah.
here we are, it's a work day, it's not a weekend. So it does seem, and I'm a casual gallery goer, but that does seem to still be a place where people want to come to. But how do you, I'm not saying you use gimmicks or tricks,
Yeah.
but how do you
draw your
how
audience?
Do you keep drawing your audience?
Yeah. That's a mysterious thing that belongs, I think, to the marketing department and the education and public program team. But we work closely with them and share. So from the curatorial team, in terms of contributing to that, I guess all we can do is provide programming and put works on the wall that hopefully are relevant to our community, to our manuhiri, to our culture and our cultural memory. But the getting them in the door is really that another part of the gallery entirely, and there's teams of people that really work towards it, and it's awesome that what you are seeing as a result of their work is the numbers coming through the door. And this side of COVID is also significant, of course. The rangatahi coming through from schools, so our networking out to the local schools is always important to galleries. School children make up a big part of our visiting numbers. But also this side of COVID, of course, is the tourist market coming through, and we've seen a massive influx in tourists. But you've still got to, as an institution, provide these entities with something that they want to see that's relevant to them, and they want to see what they can't see elsewhere in the world. They want to know what the art history of Aotearoa, New Zealand is. They want to know who our key artists are. They have heard of that this is a place that has good representation of Māori in terms of Māori produced art, but also the presence of Māori ancestors through European painters, and that this is a place in the world to come and have that experience. And that's one thing I really like about my role is that's something that I can be responsible to. I can, think around ways that we keep artists like Charles Frederick Goldie or Gottfried Lindauer present amongst our Māori modernists and our contemporary Māori artists and our conceptual Māori artists, that although visually may not appear like Māori art at all, but the fundamentals behind it are absolutely Māori. And the Māori world in some ways is a world of ideas. It's that particular kite, is it kite aronui,
Aye.
where philosophy and the thinkers and the humanities exist. Regardless what the artwork looks like, those things exist within the work.
Which takes us to, we started with the exhibition which is closing, but we've got a new one coming, Time Moana Coastlines.
Yeah.
And that's opening on April the 27th, is that correct?
I think so, yes.
Yep. And so what's that going to be about?
So Time Moana Coastlines allows us to consider and ask our viewers to consider the shoreline, the coastline, but we offer up perspectives whereby the coastline is maybe it's the place that you're moving towards from the sea, in which case we ask our viewers to ask themselves, who is that looking towards the shore from the sea? If they're on the shore looking out to sea, who is it looking from the shore to the sea? If they are looking from the shore to the sea and they are seeing waka ama, are these people Māori? Are they European? Are they Tauiwi, Pākehā? Those kind of questions are a part of what we're putting forward in the kaupapa of this exhibition, and it allows us to bring historical, contemporary Māori Pākehā works to sit in a space together and have these kinds of conversations.
How did you fellas come up with this theme, this kaupapa?
Well, the show is really held together. The show is really pulled together by Sarah Farrar, who's the curatorial lead and education lead for the gallery, and Jane Davis, the lad, and myself. And we've kind of and Sarah's kind of provided the idea of the coastline, and we've contributed to the depth of how that might be considered, and so we've looked to also, of course, try and maintain a equal balance of artists in the collection. There's new works in the collection. The exhibition includes artists. There's Pat Henley, a beautiful work that was from the Auckland airport. There's Pip Colbert, Ralph Forsythe, Arnie O'Neill's in there, Natalie Robinson's in there. There's a whole lot more who younger ones coming through from the Pacific artists and Māori artists and Pākehā artists realms who are a bit younger, but I just can't name at the moment.
Oh no, that sounds good. I mean, that will run, for about 3 months?
3 years.
It'll run for 3 years?
Yeah, or it'll run definitely for 2 years, I know that for sure. We're wanting these collection shows run for about 2 years. This one may extend out to as far as 3. What that will enable us to do is to slow down the pressure on the staff to provide exhibition programming. So the show will go on for 2 years minimum, and it could go on for as long as 3. Really, and I know that sounds like a long time, but that would actually include change outs for a lot of work. So works on paper and so on would need to be changed out during that time. So that wouldn't be like it's a fixed point for 3 years. It'd be an evolving exhibition over a 2 to 3 year period. That's because these shows and this particular gallery has some of the largest public art galleries in the country, and they are quite a demand for all of our staff to deliver for, and it's a lot of pressure. And the gallery is trying to find ways to keep the program relevant and changing over, whilst also getting some air in there in terms of human capability, really. There's a lot of pressure that's put on, in particular, the conservation, registration and exhibitions team. They're the ones that do a lot of the heavy lifting for the gallery in terms of caring for and preparing art for exhibition. And the installation team just yesterday began a installation program that won't end until September. So if you think of all of the care and the precision that needs to go into that particular role, it's one that could use some support.
One final question, because we were talking earlier about doing your art but also paying your bills.
Yeah.
It also needs to be said that you're an artist in your own right in photography.
Kia ora.
Do you manage it on the side?
When I first came here, I'd made actually a promise that I wouldn't look to my own practice for 2 years, and out of respect for the role. But I always did put my own work aside, and I've just been very lucky in terms of how well things have gone. I've learnt, as most artists do, to really manage any kind of practice outside of work, and that they don't interfere. One doesn't impose itself on the other. That is to say, my personal stuff doesn't impose itself upon the work stuff. They're the ones that give me a job, and I'm able to pay the rent because of the job, not because of the art. So, and that's not to say that there aren't things for me to make. I just find ways to make the things in the personal time that's available to me.
Nathan, kia ora. Thank you very much for appearing on Māpuna once again. And we'll be back, because we were talking earlier about another exhibition you're going to have.
Yes.
Just give us a little teaser. What's it called?
Ngā Taonga Tūturu, Treasured Māori Portraits.
Brilliant. We'll come back and have another kōrero then.
I'd love that. That'd be amazing.
Ngā mihi.
Ai, ngā mihi.